So thank you very much, everyone, for attending. And we're going to do our very best. I'm going to leave the polls open for another minute or two and kind of talk over them. I hope that's okay. I'm going to spend a few minutes to tell you a little bit about CDI, our involvement with littleBits. But primarily today, we're going to have Izzy from littleBits, I hope I said your name right, present to us. Ozzy, okay. Okay. She's going to do most of the presentation today, but I thought I would just take a little bit of time to talk a little bit about CDI and how we're involved with littleBits and where we see it fitting in education. Obviously, there is an opportunity to ask questions. A couple of you already done that. I would like to, as much as possible, make this interactive. We have a relatively large audience. I would love to get your input, your feedback, ask questions throughout this. I will apologize up front. The tool we're using is somewhat choppy when it comes to videos. We're going to run a couple of videos. In order for you to hear them, I actually have to unplug my microphone and hold it up to the speaker next to my computer. So I'm hoping the quality is okay. We tested it earlier, and we seem to get by. We will go from there. So my name is Glenn Collins, and I am executive here at CDI Computers. And I have I guess my role is business development, which means I get to work with all the exciting companies like littleBits, our VR partners, and kind of get to work with educators like all you folks on the phone that teach us what we need to bring to the table in order to help you facilitate 21st century learning. It's probably the most exciting time that I've experienced in technology and education. And primarily because we're actually starting to see the way we engage students differently. So the agenda for today is pretty simple. We're going to do a quick introduction to CDI. I'm going to talk a little bit about how you engage with us and what our littleBits offerings are about. And then I'm going to turn it over, and the presentation will then be directed by our real knowledge leader at littleBits. So without any further ado, I'm just going to share with you, so some of you may or may not know who CDI is. I would just thought I would share with you a quick 3-second commercial on what it is we do. And we really do provide end-to-end technology solutions to private, public, charter, archdiocese schools all over North America. We've done business in the last 35 years with more than 10,000 schools. And in our best calculation, more than 10 million students had access to technology because of our engagement with their organizations. But really what we're trying to do and trying to develop is a partnership with our education customers that go beyond just the device and go on just past the hardware, and really bring to you the ways that you can change the way you engage students. And that's really what today is all about, is bringing you some technology, which is really only a tool to help you in the classroom, in your makerspaces, in your clubs, etc. Change the way that kids feel about learning and the way they engage them. So our job is really to help you with the technology side and allow you to focus on what you're experts at, which is enriching education in the students' lives. So we were first introduced this product, or introduced to littleBits through Google, actually, in one of their learning bundles last summer, which was announced at ISTE, the big education show in the US. And we thought it was really exciting, not only just from a purely put it together, build a robot, learn to code it, but all of the other educational skills that are tied into collaboratively working in an environment where you have to follow a set of instructions, where you get to solve problems and create new inventions, if you will, utilizing these tools. So we thought it was a really great way that Google put things together with littleBits, ourselves, and some other technology providers that allow you to really easily deploy this kind of learning in both your classroom and outside your classroom. So I only put this up to show you that there is a variety of products that we offer from littleBits, all kinds of different packages. At the end of today, I'm hoping that you get a better feel for the kind of things that littleBits can and has done for people like yourselves or peers. I'm going to end the polling now. Hopefully that will clear up some room on your screen. So again, at the end of this, we're more than happy to answer questions. And certainly if you have questions or want more information on any of these, you can go to our website, has all of this detail, all of the specs on all of this, or please feel free to reach out, obviously, to your CDI sales representative, who'd be happy to provide you with the information you need. So without any further ado, I'm going to now turn it over and mute myself. And again, feel free to ask any questions to the question, and we'll try to either answer them live, or if it's a quick answer, I may just text you the answers. But certainly if there's something you ask that we can't get an answer to, we'll committed to getting back to you in the next 24 hours with an answer. And just before I turn it over, I'll let you know that this is being recorded and that we will provide you a link to the recording, so that would save you taking notes. And often we will share, and I think in this case we'll share the presentation, so any of the videos, etc., that are here, you'll be able to utilize as well. So without any further ado, I'm going to give it to Desi.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. Pleasure to be with you today. Please post your questions, comments throughout the webinar. I try to answer any questions towards the end. And if we couldn't cover them all, we'll follow up after the webinar. And another point is that I don't have a control over the slides. So throughout the presentation, you may hearing me asking Glenn to go to the next slide. Apologies for that. All right. So I thought to start with the state of education today, and really start the webinar by pointing out a rather shocking data point that probably many of you have already heard about it. More than 65% of today's students will grow up having careers that don't exist yet. That really changes the role education has in today's society. It used to be teaching a particular skill set to our students, preparing them to become doctors, engineers, teachers, or whatever they wanted to be. But today, we're really preparing them for an unknown future. So the question is, how can we possibly prepare them with the skill sets, with the thinking skills that they could conquer the future, whatever is awaiting for them. We at littleBits think that STEM education, STEAM education is a key part of preparing them for the future. We believe that we need to prepare our students to equip themselves with 21st century thinking skills, including critical thinking, problem solving, collaboration, creativity, communications, and helping them to really identify themselves as problem solvers, as innovators, as people who will invent the world they want to live in, rather than consume the technologies or consume the world that is created for them. So really, we want them to be the drivers and invent the world rather than be the passengers and not understanding what's happening around them. Next slide. A key element of this STEAM education is to introduce tools that have low floors, high ceiling, and white walls. This obviously applies to littleBits, but really you could take this message in introducing any technology into your schools or districts. By low floors, we mean that any tool you bring into your classroom, into your district, into your school or makerspace, it should be accessible to everyone, no matter what their gender is, no matter what their background is, or their comfort level with technology. This applies to both students and teachers. We want the new technologies we introduce to them be accessible to both girls and boys. And also we want the new technologies we're bringing into our schools be accessible to all teachers, and female or male, or the ones who identify themselves as tech savvy or not tech savvy. But at the same time, we want to make sure the tools have high ceiling, meaning that as the students get better and better in using the technology, in using the tools, it should give them ample opportunities to grow, to invent new things, to come up with new projects, to really fulfill whatever they want to do with that tool. Third, we want to make sure they have wide walls, meaning a technology that you're investing in, it could solve a very, very particular problem, or it could solve a wide variety of problems. For example, you could invest in a tool that teaches 5 times 5 is equal to 25, but teaches it very well. Or you could introduce a tool that you could use in your science classroom, in your math classroom, art, literacy, and also in different settings, in the classroom, in the centers or libraries or makerspace or your STEAM hub. The more variety of points, then I don't know
Hi.
what happened. Hi,
Oh,
sorry.
I don't know what happened. I got kicked out. I'm assuming it looks like we haven't lost any participants, but somehow your screen is now.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. Anyway, I could drive it from my screen if you want me
Sure.
to.
Why don't you do that?
Okay. Let me just open
Sorry
the
about
slide.
that, folks. I'm assuming people can still hear me. Thank you. Thank you, Alexander. Yes, they're still there. So
Okay, perfect. All right.
I'm not sure. Are we sharing your screen?
Uh, do you see my screen now?
I do, yes. So I'm
Okay,
assuming everybody
perfect.
else. Yes.
Okay, great. This is easier then. All right, so I was saying low floors, high ceiling, wide walls. This is a type of standards we have for our tools at littleBits. We want to make sure that when you purchase a kit from us, it will be accessible to everyone. You could use it in your math, science, literacy, art, social history, any subject you use. And you could implement it in different types of settings, from center-based learning, whole classroom implementation, library, makerspace, and um, STEM hubs. So first, I want to show you how the whole system works for those folks that haven't seen littleBits in action before. It's a super, super simple library of bits. It has every bit is color coded, and you use them to invent large or small inventions. Every invention starts with something blue, that's power, and you snap it to something green, and it does something for you based on the functionality of the green bit. We have many different green bits in our library. For example, you have a bar graph that shows you a set of bars. You have a buzzer that make a noise. It could be a fan that when you connect it to the power, it turns on the fan, or a LGB light, or motor servos. As long as it's green, you could always expect it to do something for you. And then you could make it a little bit more complicated by introducing a pink bit. If you bring a pink bit between your power and your output, which is green, now you could control when and how your green bit do things. For example, in this, what I have on the screen, if I put a button between my power and my bar graph, I can, with the button, I can decide when to turn on and off my bar graph. We have different inputs: pressure sensor, light sensors, temperature sensors, sliders. Each one of them get the input from the environment, and then through that input, you could control whatever your green output does. For example, with a light sensor, if I put a light sensor between my power and my buzzer, I can control when to turn on and off my buzzer by shedding light on my sensor or making it dark. Same thing with temperature sensor. If it gets too cold, turn on the buzzer. If it's too hot, turn off the buzzer. So really, you could use different combination of inputs and outputs to invent different technologies. That's as simple as that. Again, low floors. Any bits you see in a littleBits library, they're either blue, pink, orange, or green. If it's blue, that means their power. If it's pink, it means their input. They control your circuit. If it's green, that means it's output. They do things for your circuit. And anything orange is wire or logic. So I want to show you a video to see how a simple a system as simple as what I just introduced to you could be used to invent more really complex projects to solve really, really important problems in our society. I'm gonna turn on the video.
Yeah, there's no, where am I here?
There's no audio.
There's
Okay,
no,
let me.
yeah, there's no audio. So if you take your microphone and put it by your speaker.
Okay, good.
Working.
Does this work?
Yeah, it's working now, yes.
Okay. All right. I really like this video because it showcases all the inventions community came up with. My favorite one is a prosthetic arm that one of the students actually prototyped with the bits. It's a really awesome example. But as simple as just like snapping some bits together with magnets, you could actually address problems that really affects our everyday life and really solving big problems. So yeah, we're always excited to see what our students come up with. So we believe that the world used to be static. So where the building blocks students were playing with to make sense of that world. Today's world is very interactive. There's technology everywhere. Sensors, inputs, outputs, robots are everywhere and really in every interaction we have with our environment. And we think the building blocks that our students, our kids should play with to make sense of that world should also be interactive. They should also be about sensors and inputs and outputs. So our kids really understand the world they live in, and also to be able to invent new things and really create that world in a way that represent their needs. Last thing we want to do in 10, 20 years, our students, our kids grow up and really don't understand what's going on around them, really don't understand the technologies they work with. And this goes beyond the fact that either they end up having a career in tech fields if they could, but even if they don't have a career in tech field, it still is very important for them to understand the technologies they interact with. I'm sure many of you have seen the all the news developments with Mark Zuckerberg and senators. And when you watch it, a lot of times you're just like, these senators really need to better understand how the technology works. And it's more than just how the tech field works. It really affects everything in our lives, from politics to our most important privacy questions. So here are the littleBits education offerings. We have two systems that are specifically designed for classroom implementation: STEAM Student Set and CodeKit. STEAM Student Set all the activities are for hands-on, unplugged interactions. Students will learn about inputs, outputs, sensors, motors, and they gain creative confidence and 21st century skills. And really, they practice this engineering design cycle from building something, prototyping it, refining it, remixing it, and really going through that cycle. All the activities and STEAM student set are aligned with NGSS standards, and the kit not only comes with the tech, with the bits, but also it comes with lesson plans, student resources, teacher resources to to basically have give you everything that you need for a successful implementation in your classroom. CodeKit is the same idea. You use the bits to build something, but what you build is a programmable device, meaning once you build your device, you could connect it to your computer, and then on the computer, you download a software that is a drag and drop block-based coding. You write a code in the software, and then you upload your code onto the machine you just built with the bits, and then you play different activities, different games, or really whatever, music, animations, games, whatever you want to do in your with your device. All activities are aligned with NGSS and CS standards. And again, everything, the kit comes with the tool and also a free copy of the software. You could download the software on as many devices as you want. And it comes with lesson plans and teacher and student resources. One other thing that we get, actually one question we get a lot is CodeKit software, which does it work on Chromebooks? And the answer is yes, it works on Chromebooks, Windows, and Mac. All right, so I'm going to show you one more video that basically that shows a few of the teachers we've been working with over the past 5-6 years, and then we'll take it from there.
littleBits are these wonderful components that snap together that make things happen.
When you walk into a classroom and a student is engaged in a project, authentically, they can tell you what they're doing, why they're doing it, and why it's important. Projects with littleBits allow students to do that because they can build things and design projects that are exciting to them and meaningful to them.
Working with littleBits, you automatically have a STEAM curriculum. What can you design and make that'll help or solve a problem? Before it was, I can draw that, I can imagine that, but now it's, I can actually make it. Even their vocabulary has changed. They talk about my prototype, third graders talk. I wasn't talking about prototypes in third grade.
littleBits work well with library drop-in programs because they don't require a lot of teaching. It's really just explain the colors, show them how they snap together, and then let them start creating.
There is no high learning curve with littleBits. It's very easy. You can put it in front of a group of students, and they will teach themselves. We encourage the girls to go onto the littleBits website and use the littleBits app for inspiration, but ultimately it runs itself. It's plug and play.
It's more products that allow teachers to experiment and be successful. One of the challenges is that engineering is usually a topic that teachers have not had a lot of training in. So you have a product where teachers can learn alongside each other. There's also
littleBits help children discover that they're scientists, they're inventors, they're problem solvers, they're artists, and that they're capable of a lot more than they thought.
So over the past 6 years that we've started littleBits, we work with many educators, and we always try to work with educators who in different cycles of product design. So when we're designing a product, and then after we launch it, when they actually bring it to their classroom, to their libraries, to their makerspaces, we'd love to hear feedback from them in terms of how can we improve the products, what are the new kits that we could put together to address their needs. And these, what you see on this slide are some of the lead educators we've been working with, and we've been really like, we have a whole other list. If you are curious to learn about their experience, we'd be more than happy to introduce you to them. And also, if you like to join our lead educator community, please send us an email, education@littleBits.com or ozzy@littlebits.com, and we'd love to talk to you about that. So I said as part of the webinar, it would be good to include some slides also on best practices in bringing STEAM and coding into your schools. And this is based on our work with these lead educators over the last 6 years. And again, the idea is for us to share with you what we've learned, and then hopefully we hear more success stories from your end. The first study research that I always like to talk about is research done by Stanford University. And what they were curious about was, is it just a matter of students working on different projects to basically help them gain a better understanding, or is it important how we introduce those projects, how we actually have them practice and practice with the project-based learning? What they did was that they had two groups. One group, they were told instructions of how to build their inventions, and the other group, students were basically told to go ahead and try different basically solutions and come up with their own inventions. And then after that, they were guided through discovering formulas based on what they did with the tools. What they found was that both groups, basically being part of that project-based learning, it helped with their learning. But students who invented formulas through problem solving, they gain a deeper understanding of physical structures and transferred their knowledge more frequently than students who were actually told how to do it. So it's very, very, introducing projects, introducing STEAM project-based learning is important, and it really helps all students to learn. But if you guide students to actually invent the steps, invent the instructions, and try to solve the problems, it even takes it one step further and help them to have a deeper understanding, and it also helps them to transfer their knowledge more frequently. One challenge that we hear from a lot of schools, a lot of educators, is the space. They like to introduce STEAM and coding into their programs, but one question is like, where can I find the space? We've seen many clever solutions to that. Some of the schools actually dedicate space in the library, or like call it makerspace or a STEM lab, and some others actually dedicate a whole room. We've had some schools that they had a storage area that they barely use, and they basically converted that to their makerspace. Some other schools that really have a limited space, they came up with the idea of STEM or STEAM in a cart. So basically they had one cart. What you see in the picture is a branded one, but really you could use any cart you have in your school. And then they put different tools in that cart, and then they take that cart to the classrooms, to the libraries, and really share the resources among different teachers and the librarian. Second problem always is materials. So what are the best, what materials should I bring into my makerspace or STEM lab? This is particularly a challenge for schools and districts that are new into STEM implementation. And also for the ones who have had a successful pilot and now they're trying to expand their program. Tip number one we always have is invest in cross-compatible materials that can be mixed with other tools in your space. So a little bit, what we're really excited about is the idea that you could combine it with any arts and crafts material you have in your makerspace in your classroom. really any material you have. You could put the bits on top of them and just like use this. We have different glues, different, we call them shoes, that you could connect the bits to any material you have, and making any invention you have interactive. You could also connect it to Legos. We have these adapters that you could actually put the bits and connect it to Legos. So you could build whatever you want with your Legos and then use your bits to actually make them interactive. This is one project. I thought to not include the videos, but if you're interested, if you search on YouTube spinning replicator, littleBits and Lego, you find this really complex invention that one of our inventors in the community came up with by combining Lego and littleBits. And then also in every lesson plan or every project we have in our kits, there's always a remix section that we encourage our students to come up with different ways that they could customize their inventions. They could bring arts and crafts into their projects to either customize it or to give it their projects new purposes. And then the really important piece is to share it later on with the whole classroom or with the whole school. And the idea here is not to share the final project you made with your with the tools you had, but really sharing the process by which you came up with that final project. This is really, really, really important, because for many students who may have a final working project, they may actually learn less from another students that came up with a final project that is not working, but they learn a lot throughout the process to come up with that through different problem solving stages and different trials and reflections and learning. Second tip for materials is that invest in tools that are reusable and can be configured and remixed in many different combinations. This is very important, especially if you want to get the most return from your investment. One thing that is very exciting and makes the whole makes littleBits very powerful is the idea that you could reuse the bits over and over and over again and come up with many different inventions. And you could really think of it as any modular system like Legos or even straws, that you use the blocks, you use the bits to build something. Once you build it, you could take it away, remix it, and come up with a totally new things. And different students, different classrooms, they could keep using the same tools. Tip number 3, which we already kind of touched on it, was invest in tools that are gender neutral. This is really, really important. We know that 74% of girls in middle schools are interested in STEM, but only 18% of them graduate from computer science fields. That's a huge disparity. We know our girls are interested in, but sometimes, somewhere in their middle school, we lose them. And there's tons of research that shows that at least one of the reasons we lose girls in these fields is because the tools, the experiences we provide that are related to STEM and coding, they're not accessible to girls. They're mostly male oriented. So, and it's for us, if we take a step back when we're thinking about the material, when we're thinking about different programs, and really asking ourselves, is this material really accessible to everyone? And are they actually gender neutral? And really allowing our students to bring whatever personality they want to bring into their projects. They could bring pink and glitters, or they could bring whatever it is that they want to bring. Let them bring it to their projects. Don't indicate what they should like and then choose the materials based on what you think they would like. Another big challenge is time. There are many schools that are excited in bringing STEAM and coding into their programs, but there's always the problem of when can I find the time? what do other people, what do other schools do when they're introducing these programs. One thing that we've seen over and over is that the most effective models are the one that you're actually bringing STEAM and coding as part of other subject areas. When you're actually integrated into other classroom materials, that's when it's very powerful. We also seen many schools that use it as part of after school program, as part of different clubs, or as part of special events like Coding Monday, STEM nights. So there are different ways that you could bring it, but the most effective ones are the ones that you actually immerse it into whatever else you're doing. Here are a few examples of how other schools are doing it. My favorite example is novel engineering project from Tufts University. They looked at the project, which was actually was a 5-year project funded by NSF, and littleBits was one of the tools as part of this project. But really, you could take this lesson and think about any STEM tool you have in your school. They wanted to come up with an integrated approach to teach engineering and literacy. And what they did was that the students or the teacher would start by reading a book to the whole classroom. And then they would stop at a point that a problem that a problem came up. And then they would open it up to the whole classroom and really discussing and identifying that problem. From there, they would brainstorm different solutions to that problem, and then students would go to different groups and came up with different prototypes for those solutions, and then everyone got back together and presented different solutions they had for that problem. And then they would continue reading the book and seeing where how their solution actually compared to the solutions that was presented in the book. What they found was that this practice not only gave students a chance to practice STEM and project-based learning, really, but also it helped them to increase their reading comprehension scores and have a better understanding of the story, of the plot, of the characters, because throughout that project, throughout the prototyping and projects, the projects, they actually reflected on the stories, they reflected on the settings, on the themes, on the characters, and they used the vocabulary of the story as they were discussing the problem. So it actually helped their literacy as much as it helped their STEAM and coding skills. Another great example was Bellevue School District, that they wanted to integrate STEM and art together. They with that they basically had students learn about art history and different artists and their masterpieces for each of the artists. And then the project they assigned to students was to come up with an interactive version of a masterpiece of each of those of the artists of their choice. What you see here is one of the projects this group of students came up with. So they chose a art piece, and then they came up with the interactive version of that art piece, and then they presented to the whole school. And for this project, they used littleBits. Another clever way was was in New Jersey. Educators Laura and Billy, they had a grant that they wanted to use it on tools that all students from elementary to high school could actually benefit from them. What they did was that they actually paired up high school students with elementary school students, and then high school students would come up with different projects or different games, and then the elementary students would test the prototypes of those games or those technologies and gave them feedback. And through this project, not only they made the tools available to everyone from elementary to high school, but also they created this STEAM culture in the whole school. They brought in a community sense around the projects, and also they brought this like STEAM and coding activities at the core of that community, at the core of the culture they were trying to cultivate in their school. This is another great example was that school that it was actually all girls school that they had a fashion show. They had a great knitting and material classroom, and they taught to assign a project to the students to come up with their wearable fashion pieces. And this is one of the examples that the student used to have a wearable necklace, which was interactive too, as well. We also have many, actually not many, but it's actually an increasing activity that we see, increasing initiative that we see, that some of the districts, they turn school buses, they turn them into makerspace, and actually have all the tours in one school bus, and the school bus goes from one school to another school in that district, and they just basically be in the parking lot, and students will go into the bus 1 hour a week, or however they program it as part of their after school, and they actually get to use different technologies and work on their tech literacy. Here are some of the tips from the librarians we work with. One of the what we hear more and more is that give students time to actually interact with the tools without being told what to do. But give them guiding questions, but don't give them step-by-step instructions. For example, you could give students open-ended prompts like build something that draws something, build something that moves, or build something that that helps a student with disability. Whatever it is, it's an open-ended prompt to help them think about a certain problem or a certain type of interaction. And then from there, really, the sky should be limit, and they should use their imagination to come up with their own project to solve whatever challenges you gave them. We have on our website, we have many challenges actually that you could get ideas from. The last one was actually build something that moves, and we have many other examples that you could go and use them as sources of inspirations. And we also have a lot of different inventions that are uploaded by our community that you could go and check and really get use them as your source of inspiration. Another great tip from Holly was, and I'm bringing it up because it's actually close to summer, is they use it as part of their summer reading program. So they set up kids during the summer months, and they allow they let the students to earn badges for tinkering with littleBits as part of that program. And now I like to take it one step further and say you could even integrate it the way novel engineering did. As part of your reading summer reading program, you could introduce books that students will come up with different prototypes, different solutions for the problems in those books. And on novel engineering website, there's actually a whole list of books that they use for the project. And obviously, you could come up with other books that you think would be suitable for this purpose. Final point is on assessment. This is a challenge, like when you're introducing this STEAM coding project-based learning, how should you assess that? And one thing that I like to emphasize it, and there's tons of research that shows the importance of this, is that do not focus on the final project. Focus on the process by which they came to that project. Ask students to actually log different what they did throughout that process. What prototype they started with, what was their hypothesis, did that prototype work? If not, what did they change? Why did they change that? Did the second change work? And really going through that cycle and really and letting them reflect on what they're doing and think about the problem in a more meaningful way. And as part of the assessment, then you could go back to their log files and see, okay, this is the thinking process. This is where all the different things they tried and all the different reflections they did. And this is a final project. And that final project, again, may not be a working project, but through that log file, you could see so much learning and so much risk-taking and so much willingness to try new things that could be much more valuable than another student that didn't take that much risk, that they just followed the instructions and came up with a project that is not that thoughtful at the end. And finally, trusting constructivism. I'm sure all of you have heard about constructivism. This is super important. The most important thing that you could do for the students is giving them confidence to try new things, fail, reflect on their failure, learn, and grow. And if you don't know the answer, how to do something, it's really okay. That way you become the model of how to actually learn, because that's what you wanted to teach your students. It's okay not to know something, but let's talk about how we can find the answers, the questions we have, and let's think about the process of by which we're going to come up with the solutions. Introducing coding and STEAM is a great opportunity for you to actually practice constructivism in your own teaching practice, just because sometimes by virtue of it you may really not know the answer, so you have to actually go through the whole process with your students and take that as an opportunity to be a model for them, to become a lifelong learners, and really be comfortable with that process of not knowing and finding the solution. At the end, we like to say our hearts beats for educators, and really this is true. We love to be connected with you. We love to hear your feedback, and learning about your unique needs, your unique plans, and then coming up with different solutions that meet your needs. And if you don't have a solution, I promise you that we are always looking for new ideas for new products, and we can always come up with something that address your needs. All right. So with that, I'm going to open it to questions.
Yeah, thanks a lot. First of all, I just want to apologize for the technical difficulties. So for those of you who had some issues with the audio, thanks for hanging in there. We're open to questions. We have a few more minutes before our hour is up, so we're more than happy. There was a couple of questions early. One was about a competitive product and the comparison. Unfortunately, when we lost the presentation for a moment, I lost the questions. So so Maggie was asking about a recording of the webinar. Yes, indeed, the webinar is recorded, and we will be posting a link to that recording within probably 24 to 48 hours. It takes a bit of time to process it, but we'll get a link to everybody. Can you see the questions up as well?
Yeah, I can see them.
Okay.
Yeah, my school has previously invested in Snap circuits, and admins are hesitant to switch to littleBits. What would you say are the key differences between the two brands? In other words, what is provided with littleBits at Snapkit? So, and Snap, like obviously every tool has its own benefits. What's great about littleBits is that it's super easy. The bits connect with themselves, connect with each other with magnets, and so without any background in engineering, without any background in circuitry, you could build a circuit within a matter of like seconds. And it's highly adaptable with other tools, with other arts and crafts materials, and other like building blocks like Lego. The second thing is that you should really think about littleBits as a invention prototyping tools. It's there for you to imagine a solution to a problem you have, and then use the bits in a quick way to come up with a prototype that serves that problem. And that is not something that you would get with other circuitry tools that are in the market. I hope that answered your question. And then the other thing we hear over and over is that with littleBits, it's really basic. It's gender neutral. Boys and girls love it the same, and that is not something that they get with other tools in their schools. Second one, I used to work for local university center. We had a littleBits librarian. It was a success to our programs and summer camps curriculum. Great. I'm now a teacher at a high school, at Catholic High School. Our school is super hungry for technology updates in our school, which is why I joined to help build a STEM department in baby steps. So my question is there any grants or help to purchase any supplies for nonprofit cards? Okay, so we actually had a webinar on grants a couple of weeks ago, and I can, if you send me an email, I can share with you the recorded webinar for that grants. It's in that recorded webinar, I included different resources that you could sign up for, to get alerts for different grants. Some of them are available to any school, private or public, and some of them are just for public schools. But the to like a quick answer to your question, many foundations provide grants to schools, even if they're not public schools, as long as basically your school meets certain criteria, or what you're proposing actually is in line with the goals for the grant. But yes, please send me an email. I'd be more than happy to share with you.
Actually, if you share that link to that recording, we'll send it to everybody, because there's a couple other people that we're asking for as well. So.
I'll share with you. Okay, for sure.
Perfect.
And we're writing a white paper actually on grants. I don't have it yet, but as soon as I have it, I could share with you, and then you could share with everyone. All right. Thank you. Glad to hear it was helpful. Yes, the recorded webinar will be available, and
I think we're caught up on the questions. So the only thing I'd like to add is just keep in mind that there is professional development available, all kinds of tips and hints. There's user groups that we can connect you with in terms of how to get more out of the technology, that the littleBits technology once you buy it. We do have a lot of different alternatives in terms of what you can purchase and how you can purchase it, including a starter kit that starts for less than $900. So please feel free to reach out to me. I think you have my email address from the invitation, but if you do respond to the original invitation email, you will get somebody responding to you. And if you know the name of your CDI rep, please reach out to them for further information. We'll be do our very best to answer you quickly. So if that's it, I don't think I have any more questions, and I'm seeing people drop off. So thank you very much, folks, for your time today. I hope you found it both interesting and educational. We do our best to kind of move the ball forward in terms of utilizing technology in education. So on behalf of CDI and our friends at littleBits, thanks for the time, and we look forward to talking to you again in the near future. Cheers.
Thank you. Thanks.